must say it's been an absolute pleasure having you in our company right here on Salam Media on this beautiful day of Jummah. And we trust and hope that you're going to have a wonderful Jummah ahead, filled with the mercy, with the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. But I'm going to be leaving you. And just before signing off, this is a pre-recorded interview which was done yesterday with the chairperson of March for Justice, Professor Nidal Sakr. And this was on the anniversary of the martyrdom and the assassination of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah. And it was on the 31st of July, 2024, where we had actually learned that he was martyred and assassinated. So it's basically reflecting on the Palestinian leadership and the Hamas leadership in particular, but a lot, in fact, that one can actually take from this discussion that I had with Professor Nidal Sakr. So I'm going to leave you with that. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure being in your company this morning from myself and the team at Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Once again, as we welcome you back to this morning's edition of News and Views. And the 31st of July, a very defining moment, a defining date as well, particularly when one looks at the genocide that has unfolded. And we know for years the assassination of the leadership in Palestine has been right at the top of the agenda of the brutal Zionist regime. And the 31st of July has reminded us of the assassination and the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh. And we know at that point in time, it sent shockwaves right across the entire world. And also at that point in time, casting uncertainty over the future of Hamas and the broader regional dynamics. Now, I recall on the 31st of July, a year ago, hosting a panel discussion. And one of the panelists, one of my guests on the panel was none other than Professor Nidal Sakr. And we are now joined by Professor Nidal Sakr out of the United States of America. And just to try and understand what the last year has actually meant, and particularly for someone who has been very, very closely associated with the leadership of Hamas as well. And subsequently, we've seen many of the other leaders being killed as well. We know what has taken place with Yahya Sinwar as well. So let's bring in Prof. Nidal Sakr. Professor, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and Jazakallah khairan as always for your time.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's always a pleasure to be with you, brother Inayat.
Yes, Prof, I recall 31st of July 2024, you were part of this panel when we discussed the martyrdom of Ismail Haniyeh and what it had actually meant for Hamas. And, you know, at that point in time, you know, many thought that this would actually weaken Hamas as well. And in the absence of leadership. But we know that Palestinians have a history of having their leaders being martyred and assassinated.
Yes, brother. We started this conversation today, and you mentioned a term. You said the Zionist regime. And it's very important before we start any discussion to put things in perspective. When we are talking about the Zionist regime, we are not talking only the regime that's occupying Palestine. We're talking about very much the world order, starting from the US, from Europe, the colonialist imperialist powers, and their agents in the region, which are the Arab dictators. And time and again, I've always emphasized that the creation of Israel was not only in Palestine, rather it was more than justly in every Arab capital. And that's what we are faced with today. They all have the same project, which is to break the will of the people and to advance evil in the region and elsewhere. And we have on the other side, quote unquote, what you mentioned or referred to them as Hamas. Hamas today, as I mentioned it's not really defined as a group or Palestinian resistance that's fighting against Israeli occupation. Hamas today, as we see, is actually a global movement, a grassroots, embedded almost in every country around the world, in all the people who are fighting for freedom, for equality, for justice. And now we see what's been inflicted on Palestine, on Gaza, from all of these evil powers around the world are being resisted actually by people from all over the world, from every religious community, from every national and ethnic background, and so forth. So it is actually this whole conflict that we see today is a war between good and evil. Evil is represented by all of these Zionist camp and its supporters. And on the other hand, we have good, which is the common good that exists in quote unquote normal human beings. The project that was done or is undergoing right now in Palestine, we see that it was started this whole thing 100 years ago. But then, if we talk about this last cycle of genocide that's taking place in Palestine, it started with full support, backup, and actually incitement of the U.S. government and the Arab regimes. It's no secret that Arab regimes themselves were the first ones to support this war, this genocide on Palestine, and they're the first one to express that if Israel, quote unquote, is defeated, that means it's the end of this Arab regime. So we all know that. We know about the marine or the food corridor from UAE going all the way to Israel at the beginning of the war to give them all the supplies they need, food and so forth. So we knew that this full support by the US, by the Arab regimes, by unfortunately some governments like Turkey and others in the region, that they all put their weight behind the Israelis to ensure that Palestinians are crushed, Palestinians are ethnically cleansed, and are finished off completely. To them, Hamas, as a representative of the Palestinian people, of the Palestinian struggle, and the freedom and justice cause for Palestine, it's a threat to all of them. It's a threat to the world order. So that's why they went after Hamas leaders, quote unquote, Haniyeh, al-Sinwar, and so forth, who actually received their ultimate wish. They all lived on the path of Allah. They all dedicated their lives for the cause of freedom and justice and liberation of Palestine and the entire humanity. And alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, they met what they wished for. They're back with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray, inshallah, that they're having the highest rewards in Firdaus al-A'la. And they left this responsibility and this task and this cause for all of us to continue down the path. And we see today, we witness today what's happening in Palestine. We see the genocide, the starvation, every crime being committed against Palestinians. But alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, today, as ever, I am certain that victory is near and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will render this cause and the people of Palestine. And when I say the word of Palestine right now, to me, it's not only the Palestinians that exist in Palestine. To me, everybody who's fighting for the cause of justice and freedom in Palestine, anywhere in the world, to me, that's Palestinian. So when I use the term, today we are all Hamas, today we are all Palestinians, it just actually means one thing, which is we are all humans, and every human today that has the slightest dignity, the slightest meaning of and purpose of life, they are all right now in support of Palestine and in support of making sure that the Palestinian cause, inshallah, prevails and overcomes.
Well, certainly, and also, Professor Nidal, throughout the last 22 months, having had many a discussion with you, and you having made a number of appearances as a panelist on Salam Media, you've always been very, very positive in terms of the outcome. And if I recall, even with the assassination of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahullah, at that point in time, you were confident that this will not weaken the Palestinians. It will not weaken their resistance because Palestinians and Hamas have been known to adapt and to fix their losses, even in their political or even their military leadership.
Brother, if you listen to the news and watch what's happening in Palestine right now, especially in Gaza, and how the resistance is escalating and, alhamdulillah, becoming much more effective and lethal against the Israeli military. And if you see how much now all in the open support and massing the forces and the support that Israel is getting to quote unquote finish the job, as Trump puts it. And I mean, who can ever imagine that the whole world fighting against Hamas for 22 months and they're having nothing but one military defeat after another? Yes, we're having human toll and hardship that's been inflicted on us. I right now it's estimated more than half of my entire family has gone back to Allah. The numbers on the Palestinian side, even though the official numbers talking about 60,000, in my opinion, it's no less than 400,000. But that's the price that we have to pay. In terms of breaking the resolve of the Palestinians, these people, they just, I mean, 100 years should have taught them what Palestinians are. Alhamdulillah, Hamas today on the ground as resistance is much more stronger than ever before, much more careful than ever before, and much more resilient and determined, inshallah, on breaking down the evil machine of all of these superpowers and militaries that are ganging up against Palestine. Palestine is victorious always and forever, inshallah, and the liberation of Palestine could never be any nearer than it is now.
Well, it certainly is, and I know you've mentioned that also over and over again. And clearly we are looking forward to that day. And as you mentioned, very, very close. But just coming back to what obviously we remember the sacrifices of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh. We remember the sacrifices of all the martyrs in Palestine, and this is long before this genocide had started on October the 7th, but long before that as well. I recall you and I talking about Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, and you spoke about him and how positive he was at that point in time, his predictions that were made as well. And I know, you always mention comes 2028, book your Umrah ticket, book your ticket. We're going to be meeting up in Masjid Al-Aqsa, inshallah. So, and this is also, when one looks at the Palestinians as well, they've actually embraced what Sheikh Ahmed Yassin had to say. And with that in mind, this is what keeps them motivated. This is what keeps them inspired to continue regardless of who is martyred, who is not. But again, there will always be someone to fill the shoes of the leadership that they've lost.
Yes, brother. Alhamdulillah, I mean, as Muslims and as Palestinians in particular, we do not live by hope, even though that we are positive and optimistic. We live by yaqeen. We believe, we live by the certainty of the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We live by fulfilling our pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward that pledge, and with absolute certainty that inshallah victory is ours. Before this last election in the US, I made very clear prediction. I said if Trump wins, 2024 elections would be the last elections with Israel on the map. So this election that just passed between Biden and Trump is definitely the last US general elections with Israel anywhere on the map. But I predicted also that if Trump wins, that the chances are 2024 is the last with US on the map as well. I have no doubt in my mind, come next election 2028, the US status as quote unquote the only superpower, global superpower, would no longer be the case. I have no doubt whatsoever that Israel and the genocide in Palestine is dragging the US down in the mud, and it'll be inshallah the final straw that will break the American back. America has lived just like Israel. America has no history, basically has only criminal record. Got away with genocides one after another, Iraq, Afghanistan, and many others, Vietnam, and so forth. But Palestine is basically the culmination of all of these genocides, inshallah, and Palestinians are going to be the ones to break the back of evil once and for all, inshallah.
Yes, and just finally, Professor Nidal, just looking at the regional implications, and you mentioned the UAE, and we've got some protest action at the UAE embassy already planned for this day on Friday, inshallah, and which we've done at Egypt, at the Egyptian. And what we're finding is, they're becoming horribly exposed as this genocide continues. And we've just seen how world opinion, particularly on the ground, is starting to shift, and people are starting to think very, very differently about the regional players, about the Arab nations in particular, and more importantly, their blatant and their open complicity in siding with Israel throughout this genocide.
Yes, brother. October 7 exposed them all. October 7 exposed the Zionist camp, the Zionist project, represented by the US, Israel, and all of these Arab regimes, and Europe as well. People, they no longer have confusion about it. Even the ones who supported the rights, even the ones who brought Trump to power, even the ones who were voting for the US support or Israel supporting regimes in Europe, now they're all turning around and basically taking a stand against Israel. People have different reasons to be against Israel, not only because it's a criminal genocidal terrorist entity, but because they have been fooled and taken for fools for very, very, very long time. And people, when they pay their hard-earned money in support of evil, and they find out that actually that evil was presented to them as the most moral army and so forth of all of the nonsense that people get used to. And now they're finding out that Palestine and October 7 in particular and Hamas has exposed this evil to the world to see. The payback is going to be severe. The payback is going to be extremely, extremely harsh and severe. And if they think that Palestinians have been real, like, quote unquote, hard on them in fighting for their justice, wait till they see the reaction that they're going to see from the world. People around the world, they're going to be the ones who really make the US and Israel and Arab regimes actually pay for their crimes for all of these years.
Yes, Professor Nidal, Jazakallah khairan for that, and also, as always, taking time out for us here at Salam Media, inshallah. And I'm sure we will touch base at some point in time. But for now, all the best to you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's always a pleasure to be with you, brother.
Professor Nidal Sakr was us on News and Views, and reflecting on a year since the martyrdom of Sheikh Ismail Haniyeh, rahimahumullah, and again reinforcing that the Hamas leadership has demonstrated resilience, and we know for a long time they've been facing targeted assassinations in the past, the killing of also Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, rahimahumullah, Abdulaziz al-Rantisi, the founders of the Hamas movement. And this happened in 2004, but this did not bring an end to Hamas. On the contrary, the movement has actually grown even stronger. And as Professor Nidal spoke about it in terms of their resilience, and at this point in time, we know that a lot obviously hinges on a ceasefire, but once again, when one looks at Hamas as well, and in terms of the pressure that Hamas is actually being put through even some of these ceasefire negotiations and talks that are taking place, Hamas has actually grown stronger, and this is clearly an objective that Benjamin Netanyahu had set out to achieve, to wipe out Hamas, but he knows, and everybody else knows, that he has failed. And also at the same time, looking at it from an ideological perspective, looking at the neighbors, looking at the other Arab countries as well, ideologically, the Hamas ideology clearly is seen as a threat. The Ikhwan, the Muslim Brotherhood, all of this is seen as a threat. And this is the reason why they've been so complicit in this genocide. And again, the latest is we've seen many Arab nations calling on Hamas to actually lay down their arms. But the question is, how can they, under the circumstances and under the most brutal genocide that is unfolding, where we see people literally dropping dead as a result of hunger. We're just seeing so much with regard to starvation now being used as a weapon of war, and uh, uh, each form of brutality or savagery that is meted out by Israel is actually getting worse by the day. But at the end of the day, the resilience is there, the resistance is there, and Hamas will still be there with or without Benjamin Netanyahu. And as Professor Nidal says, the end is actually near. And this, many are saying, and we're starting to see signs of this. So, with that, we're going to go for a break. And when we come back, we will round off the program.